All right, today I have an almost done office reveal to share with you. Well, if nothing else, I got these shelves to stay firmly on the wall. So we'll celebrate that together. And then I thought I'd show you some of the books that are going to go on these bookshelves and just share a few of my all-time favorites with you. Okay, so The Office. I'm very proud and happy with how it's coming together. But on home improvement shows, like it goes from, mess and chaos and something going extremely wrong to like finished product in 15 minutes. And I really wanted to share with you finished product today, but I think that's just not quite how it goes in real life. So we will celebrate the fact that these shelves have been firmly anchored to the wall, and I feel really good about that. So I got the wall anchor in on one side, I got longer screws and got it really tight and nice into the stud on the other side. So they're feeling much firmer, and they actually slid into place like fairly easily this time around. So, and I also was very proud that they're level. The shelves themselves are just like a little, I don't know, wonky. And so even though they're level, they still can kind of play with your eye a little bit and look a little off. So if they look off to you, they're level. It's just the shelf, okay? And then I found this hardware at Home Depot. Our home is older, and so we do kind of like a transitional thing. So they're not like perfectly modern or farmhouse or anything like that. I would consider them a little bit more mission style, but again, that kind of fits our home. And I like this like brush champagne. It's just kind of subtle and pretty. And then, and I had this template that I use when putting hardware on doors. It makes it go so fast, and it helps the screws or the bolts line up perfectly. So I highly recommend that at your local hardware store if you're ever installing hardware. I know, I just have like all the tricks. And then lastly, I found these planks to go on top to form like the little countertop. Obviously though, these colors don't match, and so I'm gonna look for a stain that is close to this color. I'm gonna give this a coat of stain, and then the cabinets actually need to be like anchored to the wall, and this needs to be screwed into place. So this is actually the last step. So I'm gonna head back to the home improvement store, see if I can find a stain that matches, and maybe next week we'll do like a full reveal, or I'll just do a video and you'll see it in the background. Okay, the books. I'm excited about these books. Now, these books aren't necessarily like the best 5 books in the whole entire world. They are just ones that somehow came across my path over the last many years and have been formative for me. And this one, like if you're gonna buy any of these books, I'll link to them, you don't need to. But if you're like thinking, I could use something new to read, this is my absolute favorite of all time. It is called Sitting at the Feet of Rabbi Jesus, How the Jewishness of Jesus Can Transform Your Faith. And I love anything that brings us to the original language and the original culture and the original understanding of what was happening like in Jesus's time. And so this looking at what it meant for Jesus to come as a Jewish rabbi. And you'll see that a lot of the nuances and patterns in Jesus's teaching and how he communicated was very similar to the rabbis of his day. And I love in here one part specifically. I'm going to try and not read like all of these books to you, or at least all of my highlighted parts. But it talks about, when Jesus came out of the baptismal waters and there was a voice from heaven that said, "This is my son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased." This digs into what the original hearers would have understood and the connections they would have made because of their experience. And most of them spent time memorizing the Torah. And so they would have heard, "You are my son," from Psalm 2:7, where it says, "He said to me, 'You are my son, today I have become your father.' Whom I love," from Genesis 22:2. "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about. With you I am well pleased," from Isaiah 42:1. "Here is my servant whom I uphold, my chosen one in whom I delight. I will put my spirit on him, and he will bring justice to the nations." And so I love, as you dig into this, you get such a deeper understanding of each of the scriptures and the words of Jesus. And this is a great one that you could keep like right on your bedside table and kind of chip away at each night and feel really enriched by. I love that. Okay. This is similar but it's maybe a little bit more academic and maybe more from kind of like a journalistic perspective. This is called The Jesus I Never Knew by Philip Yancey. But I love this, also equally digs into the life and times of and teachings of Jesus. And like even this chapter is all about the background of Jewish roots and soil. But then it also digs into the Beatitudes and some of Jesus's teachings and even his resurrection. Like this talks about what it was like being Jewish in Jesus's time. It says there were 8 million Jews living in the Roman Empire, just over a quarter of them in Palestine alone. And sometimes they stretched Roman forbearance to the breaking point. And so it talks about just and gives you some understanding of the tension and the political tension of the time that Jesus was living in. So I don't know, do you get so excited about that? I do. In fact, look, I found this little bookmark. I had actually taught a Bible study on the life and parables of Jesus. And so this was our little reading plan. I made it like a bookmark for everybody, and it was our summer small group many years ago. So this is a great book to base like a Bible study or a group that wants to learn more about like the life of Jesus. Good times, right? Okay, moving on. This is a book, again, that's a little bit more academic, but very accessible. It's called The Miracle of the Scarlet Thread, Revealing the Power of the Blood of Jesus from Genesis to Revelation. Oh man, this is so good. Again, it's very accessible, but it talks about the blood covenant and why understanding that from the Old Testament is so important to us as New Testament believers, especially when we talk about the crucifixion, the blood, and the resurrection of Jesus. And so I love this because it brings together the Old Testament and the New Testament, and it actually walks you through all of the steps of forming a covenant in the Old Testament and what that means to us as New Testament believers. I actually preached a sermon on this, so if it's still available, I'm going to link to it below, because I even made like little visuals to go with it and kind of walk through the whole thing. And so again, I just love getting a deeper understanding and appreciation for who Jesus is and all that he paid for on the cross. Okay. And then this book I've referenced before. Now, there are books that are more scholarly and deeper when it comes to the parables. This one is called The Parables, Understanding What Jesus Meant by Gary Inrig. The reason I like this one is I think it's really good for like a Bible study or a discipleship group. If there's someone who's a new believer that you're helping to kind of instruct and bring along, because the parables are jam-packed with truth and love. And I think it's only when we understand, especially understanding it in the original context, that we really experience the love and the grace along with the truth that Jesus brought and that the parables hold. And so, I mean, for example, like the parable of the midnight caller, you know, the neighbor who's like knocking and knocking, like, hey, I have a visitor, I need some bread. And the neighbor is like, leave me alone, my kids are sleeping. Like, what does that mean, right? So you can dig into that, or the Good Samaritan, or the prodigal son, like what it meant for a father in that time and a land baron and a very wealthy man to be running toward his son. It didn't happen. But in doing so, he was covering the shame that the people from the town would be casting upon the son. So by running to him, he's covering his shame, and then he's receiving him back from a lost and desolate place. And so then we see ourselves, you know, as those who have been lost and who need that forgiveness, and we see the grace and love of our Savior covering our shame and making atonement for our bad choices. And so it is so good. So this book is very accessible, and again, a great book for like a Bible study or something like that. Okay, the last two are actually audiobooks. So they're on my phone and I can't show them to you. However, Forgiving What You Can't Forget by Lisa TerKeurst is an awesome book for forgiveness. Now, you can't go through life without having to forgive. You know, some of us have pain from our childhood, or pain from dating or marriage relationships, or friendships, or from workplaces, or maybe like Lisa talks about, you know, experiencing illness and needing to forgive God or the circumstances. And so forgiveness looks so many different ways, but Lisa does such a good job of sharing practical stories that relate to each one of us right where we're at, and then tools that help to unlock any bitterness or unforgiveness that may have crept into our hearts. And so it's an easy read because of the stories and how relatable she is, but also packed with powerful tools that can help to unlock, especially if we've had a hard time forgiving, it can help to unlock forgiveness in our lives. And then the last one we've also talked about before, which is Take Your Life Back by John Eldredge. And, you know, if there was like a key theme of this book, I feel like it's permission. We live in a time where we have, and everyone else has, so much access to us. And so one of the key takeaways from that book that I really love is John giving us permission not to take on all of the cares and all of the worries of the world. And he really helps to explain compassion fatigue and why some of us may feel numb or shut down and like, I want to care about my hurting friend or neighbor, but I don't have the capacity right now. And so we get permission to insulate ourselves from some of the bad news and the access that the world has to us, in order that our hearts can wake up and we can have more space in our lives to care and demonstrate compassion toward the world around us. So that one, there's a couple other books that I'll link to that are closely related to that. Again, this is just the one that came to me and that I'm the most familiar with. So I just raced through some of my favorite books. Again, they're just ones that have had a big impact on my life, and you might appreciate them too. And you're gonna see them here now on my, maybe they'll go down here, Awesomely Finished Office. Okay, so thanks for cheering me on, and it was fun sharing some of these with you today. Please share some of your favorites in the comments, and we'll continue on this journey together.